pizza crust and Hot Pockets. It's healthy human foods that have not been heat processed, but sharing all the dented, bruised fruits and veggies out of our fridge that we may not eat, that's the best way to not only recycle food that you may not want to eat, but actually build your animal's microbiome that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to eat fresh, whole, real foods. So if you have to feed ultra-processed food, give all raw, fresh food snacks. If you can afford to feed less processed food, then do so, and still give all raw snacks.
When it comes to feeding dogs stuff from the fridge, actual human quote-unquote food, I know for myself, even to this day, until reading this new book, there were certain food items that I was questioning whether it was good for the dog or not.
Yeah.
And I love how you guys in this book really break it down in a simple way, because I think that can be a barrier for a lot of people for including those into the dog's diet.
Huge.
So break it down for us here. It's really not that many foods that people need to be concerned about.
It isn't, Jesse. And in fact, that's a big chunk of the book, is humans have such profound food fears that this is actually what prevents them from sharing anything. In fact, I just think about my Facebook page where when I post, hey, share some blueberries with your dogs, the number of people that say, you can't give blueberries to dogs, you'll kill them. It's overwhelming. Like humans have been conditioned to never give anything to their animals. And so we do have a steep re-education curve for millions of pet parents out there who still believe that anything other than pet food could be detrimental. So that's hurdle number one. The best and easiest way I can pare down what foods you need to avoid. And the first thing I want to talk about is there's a difference between toxic foods and foods that are unhealthy. There's a big difference. Toxic foods will kill your animals. Unhealthy foods just can have health consequences. So let's just first differentiate toxic from unhealthy. The European Pet Food Council, which is called FEDIAF, the Federation of European Pet Food Manufacturers, lists 4 foods that should not be fed to any dogs or cats because they're toxic. Chocolate, which we know. Members of the onion family, so leeks, onions, chives. Garlic extract in high doses can be a problem. So I'm not a big fan of garlic extract or garlic pills. Fresh raw garlic, okay, but no onions whatsoever. No chocolate, macadamia nuts, and grapes. That also includes raisins. That's it. So knowing that most people know about the chocolate, right? The 2 things we have to remember is no onions, no grapes. Macadamia nuts, avoid that too. Now, here's what's interesting. We haven't found the toxin in macadamia nuts yet. We don't know why they make dogs puke, but they do. The suspicion is they may not even be toxic per se, but because they're so high in fat, what they cause is raging GI issues. So still don't give them. But that being said, Jesse, now that we've identified the foods that are toxic, no grapes, no raisins, no onions, no chocolate. When you open up your fridge, now let's talk about foods that aren't healthy for your pets. We have to remember that certain foods, even healthy foods, may contain a choking hazard, like cherries have a pit and a stem. If you give a tiny dog a whole fresh cherry with a stem, the stem can get caught in their throat, the pit can get stuck somewhere. So those are innate risks. But just remember, Jesse, just because a cherry has a pit and a stem doesn't mean that cherries are toxic. And yet, when you go on the vast majority of websites, you will hear things like, don't feed cherries to dogs. And they don't list why, when the why is it could be a choking hazard. So the lists of food on the ASPCA website, the AKC website, the Humane Society of the United States, the list of foods that you should avoid, there's hundreds of foods on those lists. But they're choking hazards, or they're people making bad decisions. Like, my dog loves watermelon, so I'm going to give him an entire watermelon, which in turn causes blowout explosive diarrhea. So part of the equation when you open your fridge is common sense. We recommend that you chop all fruits and veggies into very small bite-sized pieces. If you have a finicky dog, you can actually grate them into your dog food bowl. You can hide them in their current food. Obviously, organic produce is safer because it doesn't have pesticide residues or glyphosate residues sprayed on it. And if the fruit has a pit or stem, like peaches, you would want to remove any type of choking hazard. Those are the rules. Now, some foods are higher in nutrition than others. So some of the veggies we recommend avoiding. I'm not a big fan of just feeding dogs white potatoes or corn because it's just a ton of starch and there's a reason why sadly superfoods, potato and corn are not on the superfoods list. They're delicious and they're super good, but they are not superfoods. So the other common sense thing I would say is when you open up your fridge to share your bounty with your dog, think about what has the highest nutrient value. Because even sharing a teaspoon of that, Jesse, taking a teaspoon of kibble or canned food out and putting in a teaspoon of whatever is in your fridge offers exponential gains when it comes to micronutrients, enzymes, phytonutrients, polyphenols. It's these little tiny adds that make great big gains in the longevity and wellness space. That includes fresh herbs. So the herbs I don't recommend, obviously leeks and chives, no nutmeg either, but a little bit of fresh oregano, amazing. A little bit of fresh ginger or turmeric, amazing on your dog or cat's food. So there's a lot of easy, simple hacks that if you maybe can't afford an amazing all raw, species appropriate, free range, ethically sourced organic diet, these simple hacks from your kitchen can go a long way in hyper nourishing your dog or cat.